All right, let's look at writing a function rule, which is just another way of saying write the equation that represents that function, right? We're working with linear functions, so we'll be writing linear function rules. So if we started with a table of information, let's say here's our x and our f of x. If our x values were 0, 2, 4, and 6, and our f of x values were 3, 5, 7, and let's say we didn't know what the last one was, so we'll give it a variable of a. We know that we can write a function rule for a line in slope-intercept form. And so in order to use slope-intercept form, we only need two things. We need the slope and the y-intercept. So let's go about finding slope first. And to do that, all we're going to do is find what's happening with our x values and our y values. Remember from before that we know that slope is the change in y over the change in x. So let's see how our x value is changing. To go from 0 to 2, we add 2. To go from 2 to 4, we're adding 2 again. And from 4 to 6, we're adding 2. 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. So our change in x is a positive 2. So let's go ahead and write that down. Our change in x is a positive 2. So now let's look at our change in y. To go from 3 to 5, we're adding 2, sounding familiar. From 5 to 7, we're adding 2. So let's just check. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. So what is 7 plus 2? Well, that would be 9. So we know that the a value equals 9. So let's go ahead and write down our change in y where it belongs down here. It's a positive 2 also. Well, remember that any number divided by itself is 1. So in the end, we actually have a slope of 1. So let's go ahead and replace the slope with 1. Now we need to know the y-intercept. So let's take a look here at the y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is what happens when x is 0, right? So when x is 0, this y value is really b. So let's write this out a different way. I don't really like that. Let's write it this way. The y-intercept is at the point when x is 0, y is b, because it's that b value that we're looking at. Okay, so we're going to replace b with the y value when x is 0. So I'm going to come over here to my table and find the point when x is 0. You can see that when x is 0, y is 3. So 3 is our b value. So we have the equation y equals 1x plus 3, which could be written 1 times x is just x. So we have x plus 3. So we were able to take just a list of ordered pairs in a table. We were able to find the change in x, the change in y, which gave us our slope, and plug the information in to slope-intercept form and come up with an equation for the line. So let's do that one more time. Let's try another set of information. Let's say this time that our table x and y And let's say that our x values are -4, -2, 0, and let's say that we don't know what that next value is. And our y values are 1, -2, -5, and we don't know that one either. Okay? So remember, our objective is to find the slope, find the y-intercept, and write the rule. Okay, so let's start with finding our change in x. To go from -4 to -2, we're adding 2. Let's see if that works every time. -4 plus 2 is -2. -2 plus 2 would be 0. 0 plus 2 would be 2. So we know that this b value right here is, this b value right here is 2. All right, let's do the change in y, our delta y. From 1 to -2, we would subtract 3. Let's see if that works every time. 1 minus 3 is a -2. -2 minus 3 is a -5. It's working, so let's keep it going. -5 minus 3 is a -8. So we know that this a value is a -8. So our slope, which remember is the change in y over change in x, our change in y is a -3 over our change in x, which is a +2. So if we were to look at our y equals mx plus b form, the m value we found is a -3/2. So now we just need to find the y-intercept, or the b value. Remember, the y-intercept is what happens when x is 0. So we look at our table and find when x is 0. And we see that when x is 0, y is a -5. So our b value is a -5. Let's bring everything else down. We have y equals mx plus b. We'll go ahead and put b in parentheses because we have two operations next to each other, a positive and a negative. So we've got some distributive property right here. So a positive times a negative is a negative. So let's rewrite this a little more briefly. We have y equals a -3/2 x. Positive times a negative is a -5. So, based on the table of information we were given, we were able to complete the table, identify the slope, find the y-intercept, and then write the rule to describe the line those points generate.